Okay, like I said, the Diesel and Mabel matchup at SummerSlam 1995, that was atrocious. That was terrible. That match was hard to get into, and it just showed that Mabel is not the type of wrestler that should be in a main event ring at all, and it just showed that Diesel should have had the WWF title taken away from him right away because he wasn't drawing at all, and the crowd wasn't really into him. And yeah, that was pretty much it. Probably one of the worst main events I ever seen, and it just showed that the WWF needed to put the title on someone else besides Diesel, as the buy rate for this pay-per-view was just awful. And the main reason only to watch this SummerSlam is just for that Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon ladder match, as that was probably one of the best matches on that pay-per-view. And then, of course, Akushi and 1-2-3 Kid, which is probably one of the most underrated SummerSlam matches of all time that many people tend to not talk about. But still, like I said, this pay-per-view is just bad overall, thumbs down, and I don't recommend that pay-per-view, that SummerSlam, to anybody, as that was one of the worst SummerSlams I ever seen. And when I rented that SummerSlam, I took that that VHS tape the same day because I couldn't watch that pay-per-view anymore because it was just bad. Then moving over to 1996 SummerSlam. This SummerSlam really isn't really that memorable. It's only memorable. It was only a 2-match show, maybe a 3-match show. You had Savio Vega against Owen Hart, and probably one of the most underrated opening SummerSlam matches of all time, as those two worked hard. They had chemistry together, and just a fun matchup, and everyone got into that matchup and used a lot of moves that you really don't see most people use now in wrestling matches, and it just showed how much chemistry those two had in the ring. Very good matchup. It also had the Shawn Michaels Vader matchup for the WWF title, a matchup that was very good, and it showed just how underrated a big man Vader was and just how good of a wrestler Shawn Michaels was, as he was able to carry Vader to a watchable matchup, and then Vader held his own in that matchup. A lot of storytelling with Shawn Michaels using his speed and quickness, and Vader using his power and agility against Shawn Michaels. Very good matchup, and a matchup that I really thought Shawn Michaels was going to lose the WWF title. Actually, there was rumors that Shawn Michaels was supposed to lose the title to Vader at SummerSlam, but Shawn Michaels sort of changed the plans, and they went with Sid to be the one to take the belt off of Shawn Michaels. Really, I felt that Vader should have won the title here, as he was being built as a monster before heading into SummerSlam, and that was the right and perfect time to put the title on Vader. And then I guess you could have Sid or Shawn Michaels be the one to take the belt off of him, but the WWF or Shawn Michaels wanted to be the one to didn't want Vader to win the title, so he wanted Sid to be the one to take the belt from him. But still, very good matchup, and it showed just how underrated wrestler Vader was. And in the end, it saw Shawn Michaels win with the moonsault. And then, of course, you had Undertaker and Mankind in the Boiler Room Brawl match. That was a very good matchup, which the two just beat the hell out of each other and pretty much set the tone for the feud between those two. And then the end saw Paul Bearer turn on the Undertaker and go with Mankind by giving him the urn. But still, very overall good matchup. Told a real good story, and just a good matchup from what you expect from those two. Overall, SummerSlam 1996 gets a thumbs in the middle. It was an okay pay-per-view. I mean, not a bad pay-per-view. Could have been better, but still, it could have been better than what it was, but still, okay pay-per-view. Then moving over to 1997, probably one of my favorite SummerSlam pay-per-views of all time. This was the SummerSlam Heart and Soul. It was advertised as SummerSlam Heart and Soul 1997. The undercard from this pay-per-view was pretty good. You had Kent Shamrock against the British Bulldog and a dog. If whoever loses, they get to eat dog food for the European title. This match was okay. Could have been better. Could have been a little bit longer, but still, what do you expect from the time that was given for these two? It was still an okay matchup. You also had the tag team title match, I believe, which was LOD against the Godwins, which was an okay matchup, I believe. That was the match. Then, of course, you had Triple H against Mankind in a steel cage matchup. Very good matchup. Had a lot of good storytelling and had a lot of good ring psychology in that matchup. Awesome matchup. You had the main event, which was Bret Hart against The Undertaker for the WWF title. Really enjoyed that matchup, and it sort of set everything up it sort of set the whole Montreal screw job up. Like this was the match that pretty much set everything up and set Bret Hart's downfall in the WWF, as it set up Shawn Michaels' heel turn. The next night on Raw, it set up the feud between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. It set up the feud. It set up the match between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and sort of set up the whole animosity between the two, and then the animosity between Vince and Bret Hart. And then it also set up a whole bunch of things. And also, there was the undercard. There was a match, the famous matchup between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Owen Hart, where Owen Hart broke Steve Austin's neck, and Steve Austin ended up beating Owen Hart with one of the worst roll-ups I ever seen. But still, it was awesome for Austin to continue that match with the broken neck. Just showed you how much guts that guy had. There was also the Brian Pillman and Goldust matchup, which I thought was very underrated, which the loser, if Goldust lost, then Marlena would be Brian Pillman's. But if Goldust won, then Brian Pillman would have to wear a dress. Of course, Goldust won, so Brian Pillman had to wear a dress. That was a pretty good matchup for what it was. Highly enjoyed it. And overall, this was a very good match. This was a very good pay-per-view. Highly recommend this pay-per-view. Had some good matches on this pay-per-view. Had some matches that you would talk about, and it sort of set everything up. And sort of some of the feuds sort of ended, and some of the feuds sort of led to another match at the next pay-per-view. But overall, very good pay-per-view. Highly enjoyed it, and I give this pay-per-view 2 thumbs up, as this was a very good pay-per-view. Then SummerSlam 1998 sort of picked up from what SummerSlam 1997 did, as SummerSlam 1998 had some really good matches. You had the Triple H versus Rock matchup, and the Triple H versus Rock ladder matchup, which was a very underrated ladder matchup between the two, and it just showed some future promise between the two. And it also had the X-Pac versus Jeff Jarrett matchup, which was a very good matchup. You had Sable and Edge against Mark Merrow and Jacqueline in the intergender tag team matchup, which saw Edge's SummerSlam debut. You also had the Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin matchup, which is a very underrated matchup. So good. It was a good matchup to the point where they put that on the Superstar of the 90s DVD. That's how good that matchup was, as it told a real good story. And of course, you also saw a cameo appearance by Kane, as many people thought Kane was going to help The Undertaker win and that the two were in cahoots. Turned out they were, but still very good matchup. And Undertaker put Stone Cold Steve Austin clean in the middle of the ring, and that set up the whole storyline between those two at the next pay-per-view. And then, of course, you had the New Age Outlaws against Mankind and Kane, which Kane turned on Mankind and led to a 1-on-2 matchup where the New Age Outlaws took advantage and beat the hell out of the Mankind. Overall, this was still a very good SummerSlam. Highly enjoyed it, and I give this SummerSlam a 2 thumbs up, as this was one of my favorite SummerSlam pay-per-views, and I highly enjoyed it, and I got psyched for this pay-per-view the whole entire night. I can even say that the undercard for this pay-per-view was pretty good, pretty damn good for what the WWF put out. Very good pay-per-view, 2 thumbs up. 1999 sort of was a downhill for the WWF, as SummerSlam 1999 was really not that good of a pay-per-view in my opinion. There was only 2 matches of note on this pay-per-view. One was the triple threat matchup between Mankind, Triple H, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, which had Jesse Ventura as a special guest referee. It was a good matchup from what you expect from these 3, and it told a good story as Mankind and Triple H try to take Austin out because they knew Austin might try to win the matchup. And then, of course, the ending saw Mankind win with the double arm DDT. And then, of course, Triple H got all pissed and he beat the hell out of Steve Austin, which set up their feud. And then, of course, you had The Rock against Billy Gunn in an okay matchup. It was a kiss my ass matchup, which led to Billy Gunn kissing the big woman's ass, and then he got rock bottom, and that was the end of the match. And then, of course, that tag team gauntlet matchup was atrocious. And then, of course, you had the X-Pac Kane versus Undertaker and Big Show. Overall, this was not a good pay-per-view. I sort of give this pay-per-view a thumbs in the middle, as this pay-per-view was okay. Not great, not good, but it was just there. Stay tuned for part 3, where I go through the whole rest of SummerSlam, the history of SummerSlam. Till then, peace.